What is one pivotal moment that you still carry today?
Pinpointing to a moment, difficult job, but actually, I can say this is probably one of the turning points in my career, which allowed me to have a little bit more understanding of what people management or actual leadership means.
Mhm.
And the moment, this kind of moment keeps me very humble around it. And the reason for that is all of such moments that had happened throughout my career were learning opportunities. Specifically, the one that I'm trying to get towards is more of when I was a very new engineering manager. We in one of my past startup journey, we were trying to roll out a product that satisfied e-commerce and point of sales intermittent connectivity on their tills, which is essentially their POS or the point of sale systems. And we were trying to introduce the concept of intermittent connectivity, which is even if you lose the connections, if the power goes out, you can still be able to save and do transaction that can later on sync with the server side and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And we were very close to deliver this product. This was one of the key driver of that particular portfolio, and it was a key driver of why the customer was signing up with us and buying our product, because they were really curious to find out how intermittent connectivity can solve and streamline their point of sale systems and their delivery mechanism and so on and so forth. We were close to doing it. We had several sleepless nights because we were building towards it. I had a team in Boston, and I had a team in India, and we were back and forth to building this thing. About 2 weeks, I would say 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks or something before the delivery, we noticed a very crucial and a critical bug. And the bug was that our systems, where it was actually storing these intermittent connectivity kind of data or the objects, were not thread safe. What it means is that there was a high possibility of overwriting things to each other, and there was a possibility of losing transactions in this OLTP process. It's a pretty big bug. It's a bug that we couldn't have solved in a single week or in a single iteration of our sprints. So the humbling factor around this thing is that I was the engineering manager, and we noticed this thing, and we know that there's no way to so quickly solve this thing. Delaying the launch was the only way that we could come up with. But I have to convey this. I have to convey this message to my CTO to tell him that how this is going to impact, what is the technicality of this bug is, and what and all those kind of things is. So here I am, like I'm trying to carry a big kind of portion of a project, and then I'm going to cause an outage if I don't tell about this bug. So I was in that dilemma. And so what I learned from there is, as a leader, when I'm trying to convey this thing, just not saying the why this is going to happen. I have to back it up with what has happened, how this is going to be resolved, what is the impact of this, how is the outcome will change based on such things, which is delaying our launch and so on and so forth. And there was some monetary value around this thing too. So owning that decision was probably one of the biggest learning opportunity for me, and it still keeps me humble, saying in a very fast-paced and crucial points, if you miss something, there is still possibility and optionalities available where you can come up with a solution, come up with an impacting outcome, and then explain it to your senior leadership, and then understand how it's gonna be solved and how it will be resolved. And what it eventually did, which is I was very happily surprised that this actually built a lot of trust and credibility with my leadership. They understood that I am not going to be somebody who can pass along such kind of gaps in our system.
Yeah.
And I'm there to call it out. I would own it. I would fix it. I will make sure that everything goes in time. So that built a lot of credibility, and kind of boosted me in my leadership journey in that particular startup. So I actually was surprised. It was a surprising part that that kind of failure actually helped me to build more reputation and more kind of relationship in my leadership team.
When it comes to scaling teams, hiring teams and building teams, what were the biggest surprises or even previous mistakes that you've learned from along that journey?
Yeah. So this might be something that is very easily understood and known by a lot of leaders, but I think I still want to call out is that we always come with this preconceived notion around that, okay, we are managing a team of 5, we can easily manage a team of 20, 25, 30, and all those things. Like that seems like a linear progression of things. And but I do feel that it is important to call out that it's not a linear progression from having to have like 5 engineers to having 25 engineers or 30 engineers or 50 engineers or whatever that progression looks like. Because there's a thing that breaks down immediately is your communication channel. As soon as you grow from something like a team of 8 to something like 50 or something like that, even if it is growing in a natural or a normal pace, the communication channels breaks down eventually. And the things that you can do by talking to your team on a one-on-one basis is no longer possible. You need to have something like Slack and Teams and so on and so forth to actually keep all of those things. You cannot have one-on-ones with all of your 50 engineers that you actually have. So deliberate delegation, having leaders in the middle, all of those things starts becoming relevant for you. So it might feel and it might seem that is a natural progression from somebody who's leading 5 to 10 engineers for 5-6 years can easily now start leading 25, 30 engineers. But it's not that a linear progression. There are surprises in the middle, and the communication breakdown is probably one of the biggest surprise. But from drawing out from my experiences, I would say one of the biggest mistake that I actually have done is during the hiring processes, which is it is very easily thought or like very easily understood by a lot of people is that we should hire for cultural fit. And I agree that we should be hiring for cultural fit. But I have also noticed that just hiring for cultural fit creates a monolithic environment and a cultural kind of non-growing or a kind of non-collaborative way of growing a team if you only do for cultural fit.
Yeah.
What I found out better is something that is called as cultural add, which is you have understood your team's dynamics. You hired somebody who can also fit into that team's dynamics, but also have originality and something and out of the box thinking or some of the things in that you haven't thought about it, brings the perspective from that nature and can do a cultural add to your team. So rather than finding somebody who is going to be collaborative to your existing culture, just goes along with what's happening, can be stifling in the long run if you do not do cultural add in your team. So that is probably one of the biggest mistakes that I think about in when I'm trying to hire individuals is it is easy to say just hire somebody who looks and feels like the same person from the existing team, but it has a prolonged effect of stifling innovation growth because the perspective is missing in such scenarios, right? So I think that's an important call out that I always think about and always feel that it is a learning opportunity for us.
I'm curious to gather your thoughts on how you've grown as an individual, as a leader, and the difference what it looks like from being a hands-on engineer up to being a proven leader in this space.
I would just outright say that the transition from IC to a leader is not an easy thing. And I think the biggest change there is, where do you get your dopamine, right? As an engineer, you get your hit from solving problems. You see your code in production, you fix gnarly bugs, and then as a leader, you get your fix, or you understand where and how your organization is moving. How soon are you providing people to win? How soon are you creating these environments? So that's change from solving a problem right in front of you, fixing a bug, to actually noticing outcome over the period of time, using the people's wins and using the people their deliveries and things like that is actually a big shift. So that mindset change is probably one of the biggest challenge around this. And I think the hard part for me on this thing has always been that as an IC, I later realized that there was several locations where I was becoming a bottleneck, which is there's a lot of knowledge that was actually in that I've acquired in due course of time, and then people were trying to figure out if there is a way that I can review their code and then have significant impact on their PR and so on and so forth, and then that kind of thing was mostly a challenging piece for me and was becoming like a bottleneck situation in this case. From there, moving on to a team which I can grow, which I can actually help them to understand what an outcome looks like, what are the different things that are part of the roadmap and how these tasks are going to align, I removed myself from that bottleneck. Now have
Yeah.
an empowered team that is not falling in that classic trap of like that are stuck on me. And that probably is the hardest part. And then after that, there are lessons that you can probably learn from these, right? So one of the hardest lessons that you can probably learn is that the job is not, as an engineering leadership, your job is not to solve the problem. Your job is essentially to create an environment where the solution the solution emerges, like giving the right space where instead of you being correct and saying things, you make other people comfortable to come up with ideas and solution that actually solves the problem. So the good decisions comes in. So as an engineering leaders, you are probably never solving a problem. You're just creating that environment and coaching people to solve something in that space where they have the freedom of, like, they are led by empathy. They have the freedom of expression. They have the freedom to actually find out a problem and a solution around these things, right? So that's probably, as a leader, I think one of the growth perspective around it, to converting from evolution or evolving from an IC to an engineering leadership.
I'm curious to gather your thoughts, first of all, on AI and, the future and what it looks like, but also get a strong understanding in terms of how it's changing your team, how they design, build, and deliver software for any of the organizations you've worked for.
No, I think it's an interesting, and we are in the eye of a storm kind of thing at this point of time, right? And I think the AI is changing the engineering in a way which is both like overhyped and underestimated.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, it is overhyped to say that it will replace engineers and it will be able to do the work that engineers are doing, which I think is not going to happen. It's not happening anytime soon, because we don't want to get rid of the skill pool that we generate from the engineering teams. But it is also underestimated on how much it is changing the nature of the work. Like right now, we are seeing that AI accelerate the thinking of code cycles, right? Which is, engineers are using AI to generate boilerplate code, suggestive implementation, familiar code bases, and such things are actually happening. It's not replacing the judgment. What it is doing is, it is compressing the grunt work, which is, it is anything that is available today as a boilerplate code, which is automated, generated, or suggested implementations, can be easily now available to you at that IDE level. So it is compressing the grunt work. But the data suggests, like if you read through some of the papers that comes out, the data suggests that this might allow us for about 20 to 30% of like productivity gains, but it is not actually replacing judgment. The teams are still trying to solve problems, but at a different level. What they are trying to solve now are bigger design challenges, architecture bottlenecks, infrastructure challenges. Their code reviews are more succinct. And these things are becoming more and more important. So you see how the nature of the work is changing. The grunt work is getting compressed, but the teams and engineers are becoming more design focused, architecture focused, can look for bigger strategies. So that nature is actually where the skill is shifting towards, right? So you are not only just writing pure vanilla code, but you are actually thinking about the bigger picture of what the product is. And this is the future org. This is where you would see the engineering org in the future is see that there will be smaller teams shipping faster, but with a higher skill set of abstractions of architecture deliverables, better design. So you now have a set of tools that the AI is providing you, which can allow you to do these kind of futuristic strategical work that were not possible because you were too busy with doing the boilerplate things and so on and so forth. So in a nutshell, what I can say is like this is, what I can say is that this is essentially won't change the factors that drives engineering talent, which is judgment, creativity, understanding user context, navigating trade-offs. These are the actual decision makers or the skill set that I think engineering teams or engineers should be building, because that is not going to be changed and that is not going to be moved out by use of AI. It will allow us to augment such things by use of AI and can deliver solution faster. So we have an incredible tool in our hand that can deliver such things, which is a quicker judgment, higher creativity, a higher understanding of user context, navigating trade-offs, building structural and strategic artifacts. Those things will keep on evolving, and those are where the engineering team should be more focused on.